Hello everybody and welcome back to Wappelville. You can see I'm just getting some stuff set up here. I think we're going to be good to go. Don't think I have to do all the password typing. What do we have here? Well, nothing says holiday like Hellboy, so we're going to do another Hellboy figure, and this is Liz Sherman here. Now this is actually one of the more interesting references that I found, because originally I was going to do this flame here, well, just orange. Same way that we did on our last session here with Hellboy. I was going to go with the orange flames, and then I saw these references, and I said, wait a second. Blue flame there, that could be really interesting. So obviously the two references down in the corners, movie references, this just some kind of fan art or whatever, but it still gives you the same effect, but also has the clothes. Look at those clothes. So you've got some browns on there, see warmer tones. That's what's going to accentuate that blue flame. So we'll have that reference. You'll see that get larger and smaller as time goes by. On the palette, we're sticking with the usual here. We're going with our Reaper liners, red, sepia, brown, blue. I got green, got them all. Also has a couple other things here, so we'll fool around with this Achillean green and clear blue. And we've also got these two guys over here. So mint green and maggot white. There you go. Also from Reaper. And then there's this. You've seen me using these before. Now last on the Hellboy we used this. I do not have a blue of this. I'd say if I can find this in this, you can bet I'm after that. I'm all after that. But for now we're just going to have to use the Vallejo blue fluorescent. It is the weirdest of all the fluorescents that they make, by far. I gotta tell you that right now. What I'm gonna do here is just pick up a little bit of this for you. So look at that. That is a big old chunk. Now that's pretty much how all of the Vallejo fluorescents start. You have to thin these down, but what's interesting is, as thick as this has very little coverage, and it fools people a lot because they think, well, gee, a paint like that's thick like that's just going to blot out the sun. Not quite so. It's just the opposite. Now, this stuff, as we discovered, even as thin as it is, this actually covers like crazy. This is your golden acrylics. This stuff, however, not the cheapest stuff in the world. Out on the palette here, we got brown liner, blue, red, sepia. We got clear blue here. I'm going to throw some Achillean green in there. We got our mint green, maggot white. There's your fluorescent. And for some skin tone things and other highlights, we got our maggot. Nope, sorry, maiden flesh. They're both starting with M's. Let's get this going. Now, I don't see. I'm actually going to make sure that. And look at my chat here. I'm going to move this over just a bit. I gotta make this window a little bigger so I can see it. And I'm getting my glove on here because, ironically, it's a blue glove. Be a little bit easier for you to see that figure. Now, the other thing I tested earlier, I was shooting one of my armory painting videos for the Patreon page. I was using this Optilung. This is about a number 4. Yeah, number 4 round right here. And you can see I was only using it for about an hour. It's already got some dog ear stuff going. It's got all this going, which is hilarious because yield craft brush of the 35-cent variety just withstands that kind of stuff better. So that's why we're going to use it. Now let's start this off. What I did, this is the usual, right? Badger Steiner Res Primer. You can brush it on if you don't have an airbrush. We did it for years. Did that for quite a while. Let's take some brown liner. We're going to take some sepia liner. We are going to throw out some just initial glazes here. We are going to make this warmer, darker, because what are we going to be doing here? I got red liner going. We are going to be making it lighter in some places and also cooler. Now for this first little bit here, what I am going to do is keep the camera just backed out, not zoomed in. See if we can zoom it in a little bit once we get past this initial stage of just kind of mayhem right here. So let's get the Let's get our concrete down here. Now, I'd thought about putting a second light source on here, maybe one of those flaming skulls, so we could have blue and orange flame kind of bouncing off each other. But is it now? Let's just keep this relatively simple. We're going to take our sponge here. We'll take some of this away. Since it's taken a fair amount of it away, what it does is unleashes a little bit of my lighter shading underneath there that I did with the airbrush, and it was simple. It was just a few colors lightening along the way. Very simple. Now, I'm not expecting a huge crowd here because, well, it's the holidays, and in some places it's pretty much almost already the 29th. So I understand. Heck, I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to do this. Now, what we're going to do is dive into some of our lighter colors here. Got the red liner working. Oh, let's just start to sneak in a few of these warmer, lighter tones. And then I'll show you what we have to do with the blue. And just by its nature, because it's different than the other ones, we're actually going to have to paint much lighter here than we're going to, and then, for all intents and purposes, darken it down. We'll have to, and it's not a glaze per se, because remember how thick that stuff was, but I told you at the same time, it doesn't really cover. Here's some of that mint green. We'll put a touch of the fluorescent in here. Now, what you basically have to realize is that is actually affecting the color. It really does have an effect on it. It may not seem that way, but when you see it in photographs and other things, then you really say, oh, yeah, it is actually having an impact on it. It just doesn't seem that way. But this is really what I'm putting on here now is already more intense than it ordinarily would be. So what we'll do now is we'll just let more of the fluorescent blue work its way in. And what I'm going to do at this point then is even let it dry for just a couple of seconds here, and we'll bring out Hellboy, and we'll just check him out real quick here. So if you remember, we were using the other stuff, we could just, in a couple of seconds, we could establish this glow here. I mean, it took no time at all. Hey Chopper, how's it going? It's Blue Flame this time. And James, how's it going? Boy, I hear it's pretty darn toasty. Well, especially, what is it in Perth? It's 106 degrees today, something like that. I'm going to try and see if I can't get this to get one more level zoomed in here. It might or might not let me do that. Just make sure our focus is hot. There we go. Now we'll get my window back up here. It was pretty nice. I hope yours was good. Basically, it was a mellow one. That's all I wanted, was something a little bit calmer than maybe past Christmases, and it was achieved by having less people. That's not always the greatest thing, but it was nice and mellow, especially since where we were going, my brother they have a new dog, and he's a mellow dog, but she is very young. And the last thing you need around a dog that's that young is a whole lot of strangers bouncing around the house. So that kept everything nice and mellow. Speaking of warm, I think it was 60 some odd degrees here. I believe it was one of the warmest Christmas days in 27 years, which meant we got to play some football. Hey Trevor, how's it going? Hey Alan. I hope everybody, again, this is sort of a holiday edition here. I will try to sneak in one more of these. Let's see, what is it? It's the 28th. Maybe I'll even try to do one on the 30th. I don't know. I'm also busy filming videos for the Patreon page. Been working on the Lizardman Blood Bowl team. That one's a complicated one because effectively it's got over a dozen different color schemes on it. Here, we'll just sneak in. You see See how that's just starting to tint that a little bit towards the blue, but not too much. If this were the other fluorescent paint, it would stand out so much more, because you guys pretty much all saw that previous one with Hellboy and how fast, I mean, that orange just boom. As soon as I brushed it on there, you could just see the impact that had. Now, see how I'm looking at those two pictures of the flame surrounds her? Well, all three. Now, one that surrounds her, and then there's the one, see where it's in her hands there? Now, what's weird is that the flames actually get brighter the farther away from the hand it is. I'm going to go with my usual thing, where the closer to the source, the brighter it is. So you can see we're leading off with the object source lighting. We are not trailing. You gotta lead the way with your object source lighting. You want to establish that as soon as you can. Now, those who are familiar with me, I say this kind of ad nauseum, that if you don't establish it right away, you will convince yourself that, oh, no, I've did all this other stuff. I've spent hours painting this. I don't want to ruin it. Oh my goodness. Hey Jared, how you doing? That phrase, that's the nails on the chalkboard for me. Oh, I didn't want to ruin it. As I was filming that video, I was almost 2 hours and 40 minutes of, who cares? If it doesn't work, I'll just paint over it. No big deal. And I just said that over and over again. I was purposely trying some crazy things to even almost make that situation happen. Something I sort of like to do, actually, is to create mayhem on a video and show people how you can sort of correct that. I think you can already see. Now, I think I've got my brightness turned down a touch. Yeah, I don't think I have to leave it there. I did some adjusting on my lights. A little bit of adjustment there. I'm going to go over to my brightness, turn that up a tad. There we go. So like I said, happy holidays to everybody. I'm going to take a little bit of the clear blue here. I hope it was a Christmas filled with new miniatures. I know you've got probably a whole ton of unpainted ones already, but you can never have. There is no such thing as too many miniatures. That doesn't exist. There is no such thing. The only problem is there are houses that are too small to contain the miniatures. The too many miniatures, never a problem. Now this is another thing that I think it was it was a big old Nocturna figure that I was doing. Realized that stuff like this, see where the light's hitting this? Now, I wish I had a blue flashlight. Ironically, all I have is one of these, and it's red. Here, let's shine this on there. I have to turn this light off to make this work. But see how there's a shadow that's being cast there by the coat? Got to remember that further on down the line. Got to remember that little bit of shadow right there. So you can see what happens now when you have a little bit of the opaque maggot white in there. See how that same blue that was just didn't have a whole lot of anything to it, all of a sudden it's, wow, boom. Now at this point, this here is fire. So these little tendrils like this, those need to get lighter. What's nice is that extra little bit of those tendrils. Oh, the blue Cheeto. Yes, this is the blue. Well, let's see. Now, that's that. Can we say that we did green Cheetos with the Necrons? Well, we've had purple Cheetos, right? I mean, well, no, this is more like the purple potato or something right here. But, oh, the blue Cheeto. Fear the blue Cheeto. the blue Cheeto of Doom. Now, ironically enough, you put too much blue on the face and then she's going to look like a ghost, so we'll have to moderate that. But remember, this is still just a base coat right here. We're not doing anything finished or final. Heck, I didn't even really look at this figure that much until pretty much right now, so not that much more familiar with it than you guys are. I try to do that on purpose these days. It's a little extra challenge for me, and it sort of kind of simulates maybe you guys seeing something for the first time. Well, like the blue Cheeto. Yeah, let's get a little more reflectivity down there. And maybe go even more intense on this as a light source because of what it is, what the character is. And I got the, here it is. So here's this is a player card right here for Hellboy, the board game. So Mantic Games. We've got all of them. There's the henchmen or the minions, right? Got all of those. Try and paint as many of those as I can on either these live sessions or for the Patreon page. That's probably going to be scrolling across the bottom of the screen. Yeah, see that Army Painter pledge level? Yeah, well, by the end of this month, you do that $15 Army Painter pledge level. Wow, you'll be buried in 260 hours of videos. That's no foolins right there. That's real. Because in December alone, I think this is actually I'm uploading, well, I will be after this is over, video 13. This is, well, basically video 14 for December, around about 2 hours and 40 minutes apiece. You can see why we went from 250 to 260 in the content hours so fast. Because, well, every month I'm creating somewhere in the neighborhood of, well, let's see, what's 16 times 2, and then tack on another several hours beyond that. You do the math. That's a whole lot of me. Maybe more than people can stand. Oh, Jared says he almost did the entire Kickstarter for Hellboy. Now, was the Santa Hellboy, was that part of the Kickstarter, or is that just a separate one-off thing that they did later? Because obviously, well, Chris has done that. That the Spotted Painter. I think he just posted his pictures of that. Oh, geez, just earlier tonight, maybe an hour and a half ago. He'd been working on it over Christmas there. I mean, who'd have thought? Working on Christmas Hellboy over Christmas. Now, we haven't even gone. Look at this. You can see the intensity of the flame and everything that we got going. Now, we haven't even added our maggot white yet. And maggot white is not white. It's close. It's white-ish, but definitely not white. And that should have a significant, yep, look at that. We still have some fluorescent blue in there. So I think now you can see it's starting to get more of the look that we had on Hellboy. We just had to go a little bit more of a roundabout way. Whereas that orange of the golden acrylics was so freaking potent that it just bam right away worked. Here we had to help it. We had to help it along the way. I almost forgot this part up here. Been thinking about some of these other locations. Flames like this, boy, as a sculptor, they can be kind of a sculpting nightmare a little bit. So now let's leave that lie, and we're gonna go into some other areas here. Yeah, let's go a little bit of our. See sepia liner. Now she's got that dark brown hair going. So I think that's I'm gonna call that a glove there. I am going to take some brown liner and that maiden flesh. It makes a really neat sort of brownish gray. We'll try and work in some subtle differences here. Well, I was telling you, there's going to be a lot of similar colors when it comes to these other portions. All we know is that there's got to be a little bit more warmth to those than where our flame is. We'll just go another step another level up here. Again, that's all it is. Very simple. It's just maiden flesh and brown liner. It's something I like to use for old wood, because the more the maiden flesh you put in there, it gets lighter, but also gets a bit more gray. And wood's not always necessarily brown. Actually, there's a lot of green and gray in wood. So if you've ever used the secret weapon miniatures, the weathering paints, you've got wood and old wood, and it's a similar type of a deal where you've got almost a pinkishness to it, but also then a little bit of greenish gray. Well, actually, I like to use the wood and old wood as skin tones. I'm not sure I've ever actually used them for wood. They make a great skin tone, so I've been using them for that. Yeah, let's work up some lighter tones here. Now we can also do glazes over this eventually, but for right now, doing the same thing I did with the flame, just seeing how much light do we want to get there. We get too much light, our blue flame, it's kind of an equal and opposite reaction. For every bit that we add, and now we're doing the same thing with blue liner, for every bit of that light we add to, say, the pants and everywhere else, we darken the flame. For every bit of cool color, oh yeah, Krista, he really did good. Hey, Jokale, how's it going? Actually, I shouldn't have probably pronounced that J so hard. Sorry about that. That should probably be more of a Y sound. But it's been interesting, just this whole last week and something, trying to get things done. Yeah, I'm gonna say I got some kind of metal tips maybe on those boots. Why not? Noticed I've stuck with the big old brush here. Sticking with the big brush. Working fast. And remember, you can always do some glazes over the top of these things. It's just best to... Here, let's start to get some kind of skin tone on this instead of just all blue. Because we don't want her to be Ghost Liz. We just want her to be Liz. I'm even gonna... Yeah, let's get to a little bit of the sepia liner here, just to get something that is not the genuine warm color here. Now sometimes what you do in the object source lighting, especially when it gets to be a little bit more on the extreme side like this, there's times where you have to fib a little bit and you say, well, yeah, that actual light wouldn't really quite work that way. But we'll fudge it a little. Speaking of fudging, we've got red liner, maiden flesh mixed together. Oh, let's see. Wow, that's hello and bonjour to you. Merci for joining. Are you something with the... Oh, I'm having Christmas with the family. There was, oh, maybe 7 of us. That's a drastic reduction from what there usually is. I think at Thanksgiving there might have been 11 or 12 of us, but we're sort of scattered. And we're now even more scattered. New York, Alaska, now the West Coast too. So I think there's just a lot further for people to go. And well, it was unusual for us to be here because sometimes we're up in Minnesota for Christmas with Kathy's family. This time around, we were here just because, well, the irony is that she was supposed to still be able to stream, and she just really wasn't able to do that during this time. So you can see we're starting to add a little bit of skin tone in here. And maybe even use that same color here on parts of the pants and boots just to have, again, some kind of a different color working its way through. We want it to be as dark as possible, but still with not seeming undead. Ah, first and last is here. Well, I'm glad that it is better. I wasn't quite sure if I was supposed to do this actually last night, but there's a couple of things I know that sometimes the internet provider has a tendency of wiping out our internet for just a very brief time, maybe 2 to 5 minutes, right around this time at night, and then it comes back. Well, that's great if all you're doing is just, I don't know, watching a show or something. You just pause. But when you're trying to live stream and all of a sudden, boom, signal goes away, that's not that's not something you want. And the idea is you use this as long as you can. You just keep going with it. Here, let's get some other concrete colors out here. We'll use our brown liner. Look at this. I can use the side of the brush like this. Just keep things working really fast. It's kind of a little bit of a glaze here. It goes over the blue. I can stipple that for a little texture. And now look at this. We have some wet into wet that we can do right here. Little touch of wet into wet, maybe give that more of a texture than there was. And then let's put some kind of color on these boots. Like I said, we will go lighter. Heck, we'll probably even put some greens in here. But for now, this is going to be our lightest till we really confirm what it is we want to be our lightest on the flame, and just the extent of its influence as far as how much light it's going to cast, just overall. So let's get some more of these pouches. Let's hit some on the sleeve here. And as we start to hit these little things, even this starts to come out now a little bit more. You start to see that. Let's do some stuff on the hair before we go back in and maybe do some darkening on that. I've got some blue over there that I think I'm going to make go away. I still have to think about those cast shadows that we were talking about. Again, this is Liz Sherman from the Hellboy board game, and there will be plenty more from this. And I mean, if you're really into the whole superhero type thing and all that, well, been doing the Marvel Crisis Protocol stuff too. I will link one of those to, if you watch this till the end of the video. Oh, Rupe, do you always do OSL like this, or at times make the paint colors first and add the value on? This is pretty much the approach all the time. That was the approach that we did here, for sure. This one was a little bit different. So this is the Captain America we did because we wanted that whole street lighting effect. But we even tried to draw out this shadow here first before we really did much of anything else. And if somebody's wondering what the Cheeto was, this was the original Cheeto right here. So folks and you can go see this in one of my previous live sessions. A lot of this was just, that was painted right away. Because you wait till later, you're just going to be nervous about it. You'll be tentative about it. And none of those things are really helpful whatsoever. Hey, Matt, how's it going? Because what I wanted to do actually was upload that video that just finished rendering maybe 20 minutes before I started this. Alright, so now I'm going to set Mr. Large Brush aside and let's find ourselves some smaller things to work with here. We're still going to go with that Maiden Flesh and red liner here, but let's see what we can't do with our face. I'm going to make sure that focus is a-okay for you guys. Yeah, I hope actually people have a good 2020 also. It's and in some ways it's weird to think that it's almost 2020, but then it's also, I'm thinking, man, Adepticon does seem like it was a long time ago. Adepticon really seems like, especially since, well, we're well into planning for Adepticon 2020 and the classes that I'll be doing. Now I do have those Optilong oils, and we're going to play with those. Now, where's my... Aha. Just going to toss a little bit of this out here. A little bit out here to have that. That's all. That's all. Because we got to give some life to the face. Now, you can see just how almost greenish the face looks in some of the reference pictures there. I got to get some rosiness somewhere on that face, because otherwise it'll just look more like Zombie Liz or something. Now let's see just how light we can take this, again, without interfering too much with our blue light scenario. But boy, that face, I mean, it's where this is. Actually, I'm going to go back here to some blue, and I'm going to mix some of the skin tone with that. Where are we at here? Just want to make sure I'm on the screen so you guys can see it. Now this is where, see right here, I think it's going to cast a bit of a shadow there. This actually is going to catch some of the light. We've got a zipper here that's going to catch some light, if anything else, because it's shiny metal. I guess that's another thing too, when you're doing the object source lighting and those sort of things. It's almost like you're checking for reflectivity, and it doesn't have to be metal. Does not have to be a metal color to be able to have reflected light on it. That was a conversation, that was a convention in Madison in early November. Now that sort of seems like it was just yesterday, but even that was a month and a half ago, which is in some ways is kind of scary. Now I'm going to get back to my brighter lights here, because again, this is my source right here. That's my, yeah, see how much lighter I can go with that? And her hand is right here. Let's see if I can't try and get some of that lighter color in between the fingers too. Looking for the source of this to be as bright as possible, but even now these trailing tendrils of flame, those need to be lighter. But ironically enough, we're adding all this light. Well, one of the next things we'll be doing is we're going to actually darken some of this down. And I'll show you the Hellboy in a second here, but first we're going to get into some of this light now. I gotta make sure I get some of that. This is that fluorescent blue that I was telling you about, and it's a weird one to work with. All of the other ones kind of just make a lot of sense. This one is weird. It really needs the support of other colors, and you can see how thick that is still on the brush, even at this point. Even when it's thinned down and mixed with other colors, it's still kind of on the thick side. But I need to get some light here on the other side of her face. I just want to make sure that I've got that fluorescent blue in it. And this really, having these tendrils of flame here really does kind of help in a way. It sort of extends the possibilities for OSL further than if there was just that flame at the end of her arm. Lets me do just a little bit more of it, which is always fun, especially when it's something like this where we're sort of simulating that nighttime look. Yeah, there's an awful lot of this actually that's going to be affected by this bluish light. Really interesting. So much more of the face than I originally anticipated. Now, if you look at the official paint job or whatever you want to call it, the flame was done in traditional orange. And I thought, okay, well, why do you need to see the same thing again? And we already did orange on the Hellboy figure. I guess if you're wondering what's coming up next, somewhere I've got the Rasputin figure. I think maybe this is him. Nope, this is him. I think this will be the next one that we do here, and we'll maybe put a little source of flame there on the ground. A lot of those sort of flaming skull things like we did on Hellboy. So Jared says one of the things I found recently that when I don't clear my brush like you show, I had really good success with blending. Yeah, that's probably an artifact to me, all those years of 2D art, right? Doing the watercolors and the oils and all that, where you sort of ish cleaned your brush. Cleaning your brush and oil painting consists of a paper towel in your left hand, and you wipe your brush every so often. That was the extent of cleaning your brush. I think most people, again, would be horrified. Yeah, most people would be horrified if they saw what I was painting with the lizard man and just how messy those initial washes were, as we were finding almost effectively 14 different color schemes for one team. Now, let's make sure we got this set up well, because the whole point of this is actually to set up some subsequent glazes of darker things just kind of across the board. I'm trying to rotate this around so you can see the face and I can. Sometimes those are mutually opposing things. So if it kind of rotates out of you, I do apologize for that, but sometimes I just gotta be able to see it. Now, here it is. Let's just throw a little bit of this, and I think that's the container that it usually goes in, right here. Let's toss a little of this in there. There. Not going to take much. We'll go back to our larger brush real quick here. Now let's take that and some of our fluorescent, not transparent, but fluorescent. These are all a bunch of more clear colors here. And this should help us get some even more glow by sort of darkening those outer areas, sort of like what we did with Hellboy. At the edges of the flames, things were darkened a bit. Even here on her hand, where that is. And if I feel even that's too dark, I will go back into the mint green here. Let's do a little bit right here on the edge of that flame. Let's do part of her hand here, just a little bit. And there's nothing that says we can't go back over this again, too. Nothing that says we can't even use her hand like so. Do a little bit of this. Taking some paint away, almost like that makeup sponge that you saw earlier. Can darken down that some of these shadow areas here. And again, hopefully the idea is, yeah, see how the flame starts to, okay, the camera's even having a tough time dealing with that. I might actually turn the brightness down, believe it or not. There. That's how intense it is. That is how intense it is. I'm going to go back to my fluorescent blue here. Wanted to use some of that Achillean green in there because it is, and people know that's a pretty intense color just on its own. But that translucency, I needed some of that. Here, let's get a little bit of that down in here too. And I need some of that here, and here, and here. And I said, put it in here like so. Look at that. Just do that and then wipe some of the excess away. Got some of it still sitting in the brush here, and just going to scumble some of that right here. So now that is a little more subtle. We can lighten it up ever so slightly. I'm going to give that a bit of a texture now, because we did the texture with, there we go. We did that texture with the concrete. We want to do it with this. Let me make sure I can see my chat again. All right, so I can see, you know what, on this side, I've got to actually, it's crazy, I actually have to do a little bit more over here. Have to do a little more. All right. So we're sort of grinding that into that part of the leg. So I think we've got that reasonably well set. We're going to go back to our smaller brush again. And we can start to refine a few things here. Nothing says you can't just sort of work back and forth here. You can even just take the straight up fluorescent blue and go over some of this. And then here's my mix again, and I still have even some of the brightest of bright colors yet that I can work with. Just looking at my chat just to make sure, because sometimes you get obviously distracted working with, especially something like this where you're trying to keep track of how much of this projected light are you adding here. Boy, yeah, most of the face is just going to have this bluish tint to it. That's just how it's going to be. Definitely the cross is going to pick up plenty of glint as well. Just going to bring out some of these edges here too. Yeah. Now I got the zipper on this side, which at a certain point just sort of dips down into shadow. Start to get some more light here. We've been fooling around with kind of mid-tone light. We need some lights here, if there is such a thing. Now, if you want to see more of these live sessions, if you're new here and you're just kind of seeing this, you hit that, well, you subscribe, yeah, but make sure you hit the all notifications button. That's what's going to tell you that, oh, yeah, this crazy guy is live. Because, what was it, just last week I subscribed to a channel and wondered why I didn't see notifications until days, if not weeks later, and I realized, yes, once again, I forgot to click that all notifications bell. Now, let's see if we can't get some of this lighter color in between these fingers here. And speaking of lighter color, let's see if we can't establish the lightest. Look at how much more, I don't know if you can see how much more intense that is, but that is several, wow, that is several gradients lighter than what was there. And it's still not white. That is not titanium white, that's just sort of a bluish white that we used. Wow, that's intense. Now, you see the Instagram thing right there? That's where you tend to get the photos of finished stuff. So much easier there than, well, on these, there are no such thing as opening and closing credits. So if you want to see what the finished things look like the finished Hellboy and all the other stuff that you see on these live sessions and even in the Patreon page tutorials, check out the Instagram thing there. Sometimes there's also little previews of stuff that's coming. Wow, it's hard to believe just how much lighter that got. I'm going to try and double down here on the hand. I need some in here. Let's see what I can do on the eye right here. Because what we're going to do is we'll keep making these lighter, and then we're going to go in and do the pupil, the iris, all the usual stuff that happens with eyes. But first we got to get in. We have to lock in. Because we've got this stuff, this trailing flame here that's kind of going right down her arm towards her face. We got to get some of that in there somehow. But also prevent any visage of this looking too much like a Smurf. Because it's Hellboy, not Smurf. Let's get the other eye like so. What you do is essentially make them larger than you normally would. Because you can, if it's larger, you can essentially take your darker colors and sort of cut away at it. You can't do that. It's so much easier than trying to add darker colors in it. It's something that I've learned over the course of time. Alright, so I think now, yeah, the face has some oomph to it. We've got plenty of darker colors here. I'm going to take some of the red line or some of the blue. And now we'll try and give her some eye lids and eyebrows. Here, let's go a little more in here. The liner paints, they're not for drawing lines. They are certainly helpful with that. But look at how they are as a glaze. So we'll take the same thing. We're going to go red liner with the blue liner. We need some dark for the hair. And now we've got some dark for the hair. You can see that that initial, what we thought was dark, well, when you add actual dark, sorry about that, you see it's not quite as dark as what you thought it was. And then by default, those light colors, they just get that much lighter. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how it's supposed to be 63 degrees on Sunday because it's maybe 29 degrees out there. So all of a sudden the heater started kicking on a lot and it's dried out the air. So I'll try and do the hydrating thing, but it's a little tough to do that and do the painting video at the same time. So bear with me on the voice thing if you can. Let's get some dark here too. I'm going to do more maybe with the brown liner here. Like so. Yeah, looking for some more shadow areas just to darken this all up. Now, I don't know. I don't think this is quite the, what would you say, the latex slash spandex suits of the superheroes here. So we maybe won't go too much with trying to get some reflected light on this. But what I am going to do is take a little bit of the sepia liner in that, and we'll actually make sort of a green here. And let's do some stuff on this side. Oh, it has just dropped to single digit and negative temps in Anchorage. Yeah, well, I guess there was about 2 days of snowfall, right? Because that was the weather report that I had heard. There was a couple of days of snowfall here. Well, what was strange is when we were driving out to where my brother lives, it's not that far away from us. It's only maybe 40 minutes, and that's sort of, I want to say, city streets. You're not driving 70 miles an hour to get there. And we're seeing frozen lakes. Well, yeah, they weren't terribly frozen very much at that point. They were sort of like slush lakes. But yeah, there was still ice in some places, which was a surprise given how warm it's been here. I would sort of prefer the mid-20s and sunny. That is my ideal winter weather. Wish that just happened all the time. So see, we're taking that little touch of green there now. And it's not really green. It's more of a gray. But this is where we start to work in the rest of her, because it can't be only about her flames. There's gotta be more to it than just that, and that's what we're trying to get to now. Some highlights on the cowers there, but let's go here. Gonna warm this up a touch. We got the sepia liner, a little bit of the maiden flesh. Gonna see if I can't find a few, like a little ring of highlights. I don't want to say that it makes the hair a little bit shinier, but this is sort of the place you see that sort of ring of highlights on the hair. Oh, he says it's still snowing there. Now, is it well, if it's that temperature, that's not those big gigantic flakes. That's going to be those smaller, I don't know if you want to call them harder snowflakes, but the smaller snowflakes to say the least. The strangest thing is we had snow here in October. We had plenty of that, and certainly some more in November. Halloween it snowed. Oh, let's see. Uh-oh. That 40K tournament. I'm going to head out and follow up on this one afterwards. Ah, okay. That's cool. Yeah, I'll check out the... Yeah, I love well, you know me and skinks. So you'll be seeing some more in the next video. So I will catch you later. Good luck at the 40K event there. So you can see it's fun now. We've established all of the major stuff, and this is where we can kind of just enjoy, chill out here. Let's see if we can't make her slightly less angry here. And basically, this is how we can separate. I hope you can see that. So you do that. It's all sort of one, well, big batch of dark, and then you go in with your lighter colors and you just split them in two, like what I did there. Now let's use that same, almost like a bit of a purple here, trying to get some separation on her lips. Again, you can't see it because the flame is essentially right in the way. Maybe I can do her eyes. So let's get some eyes on her here. Which way do we want? We gotta have her looking where the flame is coming from. And I think we're just about there. And those are the kind of things that you can go back later, clean those up, do whatever. But for right now, we'll just leave those for now and continue. Remember, we had a shadow we needed to establish here when we shine that little flashlight on there. I do recommend those things. They are really nifty. Here, let's extend our little bit of darker blue down there. Now we have to get some lighter blue here. We'll find out just how light it's got to be, but having the colors laid out in the palette like this it's a handy little resource. And this is the homemade palette for those not familiar with it. It's just a Chinese food container, a chamois sponge, and some parchment paper. Probably the fanciest thing in this whole deal is the parchment paper. It's cooking parchment paper. It's not any kind of fancy miniature parchment paper, if there is such a thing. But I just see people, they struggle so much with those super expensive, well, to me, super expensive wet palettes and all that. And they get mold in them and everything else, and they got to clean them out with alcohol and everything. You don't have to do any of that. If I forget about it for a couple of weeks and it kind of has a little bit of a woof to it or something, I chuck it in the garbage. That's it. No fuss, no muss. Because, well, whatever was in there was delicious. Ooh, now I've got a taste for Chinese food. More specifically, I think Mushu pork. Because those of you that, if you were on the stream a little bit while ago, we were talking about, well, basically, I have to consume some more Chinese food so that I can have more containers. And we talked about what that was going to be, and that was going to be the, was it the Mongolian beef, which I had, which was good. But now, a hankering for Mushu pork comes to the fore. Now, this definitely's got to be Yeah, we need to get ourselves a little bit of a line, a chain of highlights here. I always refer to that, especially, well, especially when it's something that's metal. But let's show you something along these lines here. So see how we've got those chains of highlights that work their way down. We're kind of establishing that right here. Because that flame just, at first I thought I wasn't going to be able to do a lot of it. That's why I considered adding a secondary light source. A multiple light source, object source lighting is a blast. I absolutely love doing that, especially when they are different color light sources. And I certainly have several of those for the Patreon page. Some of the Painting Dark Sword videos have multiple light sources of different colors. And then there's the Nocturna one that I did. Got some more of those coming. Actually, a whole bunch more of those coming. So get working in my blue. As we rotate this around, then we start to get more into the warmer colors, the grays. But I think we need some light here too. Somehow, well, we darkened it down. That was on purpose, but now on purpose we have to lighten it back up a little. But hopefully in lightening it up, it still keeps a bit of a color to it. I'll say it again. I know I say it all the time. I apologize for when things maybe get a little bit obscure and hard for you to see. I'm not trying to hide it from you. I'm trying to keep it from being hidden from me, because it's important for me to be able to see it. But I think we have definitely conveyed what's in those pictures there. Yeah, let's get ourselves a touch more light on that cross. Maybe even on this part of the shirt, such as it is. Maybe even a little more blue on some parts of the skin here. We're kind of leaving a little bit of skin there that's not blue. But just where this thing is, to me, it's going to turn that face blue. Let's get, yeah, we need some separation between eyebrow and eyelashes, or eyelid, whatever you want to think of it as. Here, let's get that same light we were doing on the other side. Let's get some of that in here too. Yeah, there we go. Now, I've got a bunch of other Mantic stuff that I'm working on. It's not just this. I'm actually working on a whole bunch of Kings of War. Right? Yeah, Kings of War. Couple of units. Essentially some of the stuff you'd see in the Frostgrave, but also the new that it's kind of an undead terrifying army. You got the floating brain and some other stuff like the scarecrows. We've got those. And my goal is to maybe show folks some multi-basing, because that's a real unique property of Kings of War to me. It was one of my favorite parts about it, was the multi-basing. So we'll do some videos on that. And then there's some, well, we're going to do a lot of oil painting on it too. Here, let me show you some of the stuff. I've got them here. Now, I've been using the oil brushers here for the longest time, but now we have I'm just going to grab one of these. They are still in the boxes yet, and I wanted to take some pictures with them in the boxes. So we've got these, the Aptalung oils, essentially a very similar thing to the oil brushers, but in tube form instead of in the, well, essentially almost like the mascara containers there. So just see how I popped in a few little lights right there. I'm going to go back to some of my warmer colors here. I'm going to take some of the red, throw that in there. That's the red liner. Heck, I could even throw the red liner and some of the mint green together. That would make sort of an interesting purple. We have to do some interesting things that are not just blue on here. And that's what we're going to start playing around with over here. So I'm going to double down on that. A little more of the maiden flesh there. So some of those, see, there's going to be another little chain of lights here. Because I see people, they will highlight this stuff down under here as basically the same as the stuff that's on top. And I said, well, how's the light sneaking its way around there? That's an interesting way that light can just sort of sneak around corners. I don't know how it can do that. But now let's go, I'm going to take this, mix it with that red liner. Oh, hey Bethany, how's it going? Now, we've been talking about just how warm it is everywhere, because it's warm here, but it is not 100+ degrees here. Well, now it's only about 27, I think. But on Christmas, I believe it was 61 or 62, which for us is, holy smokes, that's toasty. And I'm thinking that your Christmas was a whole lot toastier than that. Oh, well, of course, yeah, I haven't seen too many other folks doing their usual live things either, for obvious reasons. But like you say, you can catch this anytime. Catch it from the beginning. Here, let's bring those out a bit, and I can go back the other way too, and I can remember that dark glaze that I did over here. I can do another one of those. But right now, I'm just trying to find some ways to sneak in a few lighter tones here. But I'm going to try and do one more of these before the new year comes along. Well, what's today? The 28th here? I will try and do one on the 30th. Because unless I do a New Year's one, it may be that, I don't know. It may sort of be in that overnight hour of January 1st, but I don't know, something tells me a lot of people are going to be doing things like you are, you're entertaining and such. I'm just sort of sneaking in, like I said, some of these little highlights right here. Now we'll go back the other way. We got our blue liner here, we got our brown liner. We mix those two together. Essentially, you got black. That's why you don't see me using any black ever as I'm painting, unless there's just a weird situation where I don't have my brown liner and blue liner, because like I said, you mix those two together, you've got yourself a hefty dark color, and that's what we're going to use now to pop in some darks in places, like between fingers here. We can glaze this too. It's not only just in linear form here. I just mix some water and boom, just shot a glaze there. Here, let's let a little shadow get in there. See what we just did right there? It just magnified the dark, or magnified the light by enhancing the dark. We've been at this, what we got here? 1 hour, 10 minutes. Yeah. All I can say is I know that this method, especially at the start, can look a little weird for people. But when you see what gets done and the amount of time it gets done, I just... Let's put it this way. I wish I had discovered this immediately when we first started painting, not years after we started painting. I wish I had known about this all along. Just it took me a while to develop this. Now, part of it was long ago when I had to paint hundreds of skinks, all of them in different colors. Well, that's sort of when the whole shaded base coat concept was born. I'm just thinking, how much do I want to get some? Yeah, I'm just going to throw some dark blue on the other side. Why the heck not? And then here, see if I can't get a couple of these parts of the zipper here. Let's get some of the paint off there. The one consequence, as I mentioned earlier, when you're working with the fluorescent paints, at least the Vallejo variety, they're going to be really thick. I showed you that at the start, how thick those were. That's why I've got to, at some point, try and find the, if there is, I don't know if there's a blue fluorescent in the golden acrylics, but boy, those instantly became my favorite fluorescents pretty much the moment they hit the brush and then the miniature. And I said, you work a whole lot better. So yeah, sometimes favorite materials change too. Techniques change. I don't even paint now the same way I did just a month or two ago. And I won't be painting the same way a month or two from now. I certainly hope not. It would mean I'm probably not painting a lot and not trying a lot of new things. Maybe that's part of it too, is that people do get a little bit nervous about trying new things. I've seen actually, well, this is something I've seen happen, is people get bored with painting. There's all kinds of fantastic miniatures and everything else, but because they never really advance, they find one thing that works for them, and hey, all more power to you, that's fantastic. But they start to get a little bit bored because it then becomes repetitive. It's the same thing over and over again. And that's what I love about the oils, because it's a whole different way of working. I mean, it is just massively different. And that's why I want to try some of the Mantic Kings of War units with oils. And there's some individual sort of hero figures too. I've done object source lighting with the oils also now. Oh, hey Aviad, how's it going? Well, that'd be all kinds of, well, there's all kinds of holidays going on all over the place. So I hope that that season has gone great for you too. Geez, I don't know how I could sort of forget about the holidays already, since we still have those coming. Just been having all kinds of fun here with the, where's my blue fluorescent? Here it is. So it's just a Vallejo blue fluorescent right here. And a little complement of Reaper paint. So let's get Hellboy here. Now that's kind of fun. Right there, having those two next to each other. Yeah, very fun. So I'm going to do my focus here because I want to get this a little bit closer to the screen. Now, that hand, believe it or not, I've got to extend a touch of blue all the way over there somehow, because this flame extends out, and see, it should come over here and actually hit part of the hand, a tiny bit of it. Just a little bit. Yeah, that was looking a little funky there. We'll get some blue onto that. Where else should there be some? Nope, not there. We'll go back. We're going to switch back here to our warmer stuff. Where are we at here? So this has a little more green to it. This part's going to have some more red to it, but you can see what we're doing. We have kind of a dark, light, dark, then a light again. But as much as we love working on that bright blue glow and everything else, we've got to get some kind of shading elsewhere. Some kind of other mid-tones. Something for the eye to look at elsewhere where there's not blue light. I mean, as neat as it is, we love the blue flame and everything else. That's really nifty. But let's have it be. Let's have something else for the viewer to check out. Some stuff in the hair. Let's do some of that. Take the same color up here. Oh, Engineered to Draw is in the group. Good morning. Local art supply has a massive year-end sale stocked up on oil paints and mediums you have to try, from fast dry glazing, detail, even matte additive. Oh, what was the thing we talked about? And I've got it sitting right over here. The Liquin. Yes, we have to try that. Oh, good. Thanks for reminding me. See, that is why. That's what makes these live sessions. Well, I mean, just hanging out with you guys is great. But stuff like that, because I forgot all about the Liquin. We wanted to try that. Because the Liquin gives you a chance to basically really turn those oils, I don't want to say into watercolors, but boy, talking about making them translucent, that could be really fun. Wow, I just completely forgot about that. Now, I think what I did was I asked around to some other just folks that I know who do just regular straight up oil painting. I asked them because I was curious. I had heard when I did my own YouTube video search. I mean, hey, I watch plenty of tutorials myself, mostly terrain tutorials. But when I saw tutorials on it, they said it can sometimes yellow over time, but that's probably when used on just a much bigger scale, I'm guessing. But boy, oh boy, I don't know, send me a Facebook message or something like that and say, hey Jim, don't forget to try out that Liquin. Yeah, I've got well, and also it does, well, now the ones that I just showed you there, the ones from Optilung, well, AK Interactive, actually, those are, I believe, they're supposed to dry as fast as the oil brushers. Well, we'll find out, that's for sure. I did just do some more, another batch of miniatures. Let me see if here's one. So this is when I was, so that's oils right there. So you got your skin tones and all that kind of fun stuff going on there. It's really nice for, well, let's say this kind of a blend right here. Instead of see all the different brush strokes I've had to use there, I could actually just take a color, plop it on there, and then push it around with the brush. And of course, Aviette already knows that, and Bethany, Trevor, everybody that's done the Patreon page thing, they knew how much I love my oils. It's an obsession for me, I know. it's a speed thing, yeah. Well, for me, it actually is a massive speed increase, but it's more than that. It's as I was painting those lizards, all of those guys. Well, I was reminded instantly of just how relaxing it is to work with oils because there's not that frenzy of putting the paint there and mixing it and going to get your next color before it dries and that sort of thing. It's just a little more relaxing than that. A little more relaxing. There's not quite the same rushing around, which is hilarious because you are painting faster. You're painting a whole bunch faster because you're not doing as much of this mixing here. You're not painting palette miniatures, as I call them. A little less with the palette miniatures, a little more with just miniatures. Now I've sort of kept the skin tone on the darker side here. Let's try and get some kind of rosiness to the face here somewhere. No, can you see what I'm doing? I think so. Let's see. I've picked up a couple types of liquid. Can use the fine detail to get some fine strong detail. It's like adding flow improver without it losing it. Oh, okay. Now I've got the what is it? The standard Winsor Newton liquid. Well, we'll start with that because every experiment needs a base or a control subject, right? So we'll start out. That'll be the control subject is using the liquid there. Boy, I have not. I've got to try that. Well, we'll do it. Well, with the Optilung paints, we'll try a whole new paint, and we'll try the liquid all at the same time. Well, that's going to be interesting. That should be very interesting. So even over here, I'm going to see if I can't sneak in just a touch of skin tone there. I'm going to see if I can mess around with the eyelid here. Again, for you, it may be blocked by the flame. Just trying to give that, yeah, somewhat of an attitude with the eyebrow there. And even what I want to do is pop a little bit of a blue highlight on the eye. See if it's possible. I may look at it later and say, I don't like that. And that's just fine. Nothing wrong with that. But as Avia was mentioning that with the oil paints, you have to be super aware. Thin and thick. Thin paint sticks to thick paint and vice versa. But if the liquid, usually, okay, you've got thin paint. If you just hit it again with thin paint, well, that's not going to work because the paint's wet. It's not like this here acrylic paint that's going to dry in between. That's not going to do that. It's still wet. So when you go to do a thin layer on top of a thin layer, you just wipe it away. But that would be really nifty if the liquid prevented that phenomenon from happening. Well, that's liquid is all about glazing with oils. Now we glaze with oils, but we're using white spirits to do that. And the liquid definitely opens up some opportunity. I can't believe. Yeah, I can't. I don't know if I can get to it here. Here, let me grab this. This is the thing. See how it says? Oh, well, hey. Well, I got the same thing as you then, because that says liquid, fine detail. So as usual, great minds think alike. I do believe there's supposed to be like 5% French in me, so I can say that. Going to add a touch more of our lightest light here. And now there's the one thing that we haven't added at all yet. Do we have some here? That is, I'm looking for some of my creature caster. See, we got the bold titanium white there. Whole idea behind this is it covers like crazy, as all creature caster paints do. We're going to throw some of that down over here. Didn't quite need that much. But, nah, boy, I wish you could see. This is actually lighter than that maggot white. And we're going to throw it here. Here, I'm going to hit my... I'm going to take the bright now. I'm going to turn it down even a little bit more. And just watch this area. Wow, holy smokes. I think even you can see that. That is definitely lighter. Wow. In a big way. That's going to give me some intensity there. And I also want to do some intense lights over here. This is supposed to be flame after all. Here, let's take this side with it. So what we're looking at, we are at 1 hour 26 minutes. Scrap about 5 minutes of that for talking about materials and such things. So you're looking at roughly an hour and a half on this. And I do think that people would be very happy going from absolutely nothing to this while conducting a live stream and having conversations and doing other things. Looking for liquid and other such stuff. So these are the kind of things, like I said, if you just want to subscribe and check out future sessions, that is fine. But that Army Painter pledge level on the Patreon page, that will get you darn near 260 hours of videos, basing, object source lighting, metals, metallics. I just finished up an Army series on painting object source lighting with metallic paints. Crazy stuff that, well, a lot of folks either aren't willing to try or just don't know how to do. Things that I've never tried before, like that thing with the OSL and the metallics. I'd never done it before. It was pretty much potential live action humiliation. But if I'm not willing to try it, most everybody else is pretty much not going to try it themselves. They'll just be, there's that fear of failure. It's too bad because so many, well, sometimes the best things that you come up with are things that maybe didn't go the way you wanted them to. Let's see if I can't do one bright spot right there. Okay, that's what I wanted to do. Now you can see the face there reasonably well. So yeah, this is, I waited, an hour and a half before I ever touched the white. And this is something where we're doing intense bright flames. But still, we waited. We waited on our white till we had everything else in place. So I can add a couple of some action right there. We've got the zipper here. I can start to bring out a few of these now. And then these tendrils that go onto her arm. But like anything else, too much is too much, and it can become too much in a real hurry. And just before you know it, you say, oof, overdid it on that. fortunately, it is possible to go back in and reduce things. You do a little glaze, tone something down, whatever. But this is where we start to get that final little oomph. Trying to get this part of the hair right here. Like that, maybe a little light on the forehead there. Yeah, okay. I might still knock that a little bit down with some of my other stuff here. But remember that the Pro Acrylic color covers, well, it probably colors too, but it covers like crazy. Whereas the Reaper paints, one of the reasons I like those is they have that bit of translucency to them. I think I needed to get some light on the cheek. Yeah, it was just looking like a blue face without much in the way of light on it. It's supposed to be light projected on the face, so let's have some light projected onto the face here. I hope you can see it. This is right on that upper part of the cheek there. I'm gonna actually go into that new white that we just put there and see if we can't ever so slightly. Yeah. So see, we got a light here, a little down on the eye. Hope you can see that, and then on the cheek. Now, it might be blocked, ironically, by the flame, but the reason that light's hitting there is because the flame is there. Now, I'm going to see if I can't also get a little bit of a lighter color here on the lower lip. It needs some of that. You can't necessarily see it too well. That's one of the tricky things when you have stuff like this, where it's sort of straight out in front of the figure. It can be tough to see. There we go. Yeah. Now, I think if I hold it from this side, then you can sort of see what we did here. Got some of that highlight on the lower lip there. We continue now. So this comes down here, comes across. Ah, yeah, okay. Almost forgot about adding some more of the light to her right hand, and we're talking just that much. As the light's coming this way, and it's just going to catch this one finger here, or an index finger, with pointing finger, and her thumb. That's it. Not anything else. And then, yeah, this needs to get hit. Also, still thinking about that shadow. Shadow. Some of the red liner, some of the blue liner here. Take away some of that excess. And then, boom, there's your shadow there. It sort of went away a little bit. Now let's do another little shadow thing right in here. So see how we did that? Some more. Basically, now the shadow is being cast by those straps there. Now I'm going to take the blue liner, red liner thing again. Let's get some shadows under these folds here, because we're highlighting the heck out of them. And they don't need to be highlighted that much. If we want them to be lighter, we just make the stuff around them darker, and that'll do the job. I try to get people to think that way too. That sometimes to make something lighter, the best way to do it is to make what's around it darker. It's like right there, adding again a little touch of dark there. Oh, let's do that here on the hair. Also need to do sort of a little ring of lights up here too. Let's do that. Let's do that with our, got the sepia liner and the touch of the red liner here. Let's do a little bit of that right here. And then we'll just go into, this is the same thing we used on that ring of highlights on the little bit lower down on the scalp there. Now we've got some definition. There was no definition there whatsoever. Now there's a little. Whether you want a little or a lot, that's up to you. It's entirely up to you. You do what you want. You don't even have to do the blue flame if you don't want to do the blue flame. You can go with the standard orange flame. But like I said, I saw these references. As soon as I saw them, I said, well, it would have been fun to do it in the orange also. It's not like it wouldn't have been fun. But it was kind of the perfect thing. Now let's flip this around and say, what if we were going to do the orange flame? Well, on our clothes here, we would have done, for sure, gone cooler with the clothes. Here we went warmer, so that that cooler color of the blue flame would have a chance to stand out. Otherwise, yeah, you wouldn't have seen it at all. Here we're getting some dark here on these pouches and assortment of things. Just wanted to get, yeah, I need a little bit of a line there. These are not resin cat masters or anything like that. This is just the figure out of the box. It's basically a board gaming miniature. So you may find the weird mold line things that can happen. I mean, it's a board game piece. This is not, it's not a fine chimera miniatures or creature caster resin figure or something like that. That's not what this is. And I don't have any of those masters at all here. It's not what I'm working on. I'm just trying to essentially take something that's around like a zombicide figure, but we're doing something a little snazzier with it. Like I say, we'll do Rasputin next, I believe. I think that should be fun. Maybe we'll even put some kind of a book or whatever, like maybe a flaming book. How's that? I think I actually have some of those from Green Stuff World. Yeah, I think I've got some of those. So maybe that's something we add to his base before we get down to painting him there. Oh, I'm gonna go back to give me some of my red liner here, and so we've got this. We need some reflected light of an opposite nature. So let's go a little bit warm with that. You say, what? That's too light. Well, okay. I just go and grab some more red liner, and this is what I enjoy about it. It is so translucent. It's even doing just a tad bit of wet into wet there, believe it or not. And I'm gonna, there's a little bit of my brown liner over there, and let's do some things on the boots here. Now it can't be a whole lot of activity because we've got, just right on the other side of this, we have those bright blue highlights. All the while, do not want to forget that I have that possibility of just taking the brown and blue liner and making myself a nice dark color out of that. Yeah, I'm going to go in here too. Now, like we said earlier, don't necessarily want this to have that whole spandex type look, the shininess, the lycra or vinyl, whatever the heck it's called. I'm going to get, this is that sepia liner mixed with our mint green, which actually turned it a bit towards the green. Not going to register as green, it's just really going to register as another sort of warm grayish tone. How much lighter? I'm going to get adventurous here. I will take just a touch of that Pro Acryl titanium white. Spread out that highlight a bit. There's some more of my mid-tone there as we swing around here. So again, we got the light, then it gets in darker, but then light again, darker, light again. That's going to give you that, it's going to be three-dimensional all the way around. It's sort of like if this was a 2D painting, it's like we are sort of stacking those 2D paintings on top of each other. In some ways, it's a little bit like those new, the new iPhone cameras, right? Where it's sort of stereoscopic almost. We're sort of doing a little bit of that. Okay, there's not much, I want to get more flow to that here. It's kind of gets broken up a bit now. I also want to play with, there's our original fluorescent. We got some of that clear blue. It's an intense darker blue. And we're going to pop that on the ends of these flames. Again, the nice thing, the clear blues, the clear paints, whether they're red, orange, green, always have played really well with the fluorescent paints because they're an intense color, but they have some clearness to them, some transparency, and that is helpful, especially when you want to do little things like this here. Let's throw a touch of that into the hair here, maybe. It's a slight little thing, slight little modification there, but I think to me it's making remember when we went with the white there? Yeah, I want to get one of these fingers here. That's better. I think that could be a little bit dark. I want to darken it too much because then you make it too stark. But this is where, yeah, it's a mixture of the fluorescent blue and the clear blue. I'm going to throw some of that now in these areas here. It tones those down, but also increases some of the intensity of the blue there without having to make it lighter. Especially since, well, that blue flame is sort of carrying right up towards the face, and we're also going to do that here on the cross. The idea there is to give that, because metal needs, it can't just all be light, right? It has to be some form of a little bit of a dark color there so that the metal looks like it's sort of reflecting the light. So we're getting some of that blue in here now. Even on the other side. The question is, do I want to get some of that right in here? We'll throw some there, see what happens. Engineered the Draw says, have you decided whether you're going to do an Army Painter series with the Knights of Dole Amra? Well, actually, I'd start it tomorrow if I could. Well, first I want to finish off the Lizardman and the Rohan, not the Rohan, the Harads. But now it would be 2 straight Lord of the Rings series. But I always have series running at the same time. So what I'm actually going to do now, because of the oils, and sometimes you do have to wait for those to dry, I'll definitely start filming that. Oh, this week coming up. Now, sometimes, like for the photos, believe it or not, I sometimes have to wait for things to dry just to do the photos so you can see what things are supposed to look like. But let's not forget there's other things we want to do the oils on, like the Ossiarchs, and those are now prepped too. So I think you'll probably see, oh, and the Sisters of Battle. So I've got several things that are all prepped and ready to go. Don't forget, there's the Aeronautica planes. We're doing those. Those will not be in oils. At least the first ones won't be. There could even be some bolt action armies. There might be as many as 5 different series running at the same time. It's not me trying to confuse you guys, it's that I sort of need those armies. I need my different Lord of the Rings armies, like Dol Amroth, because certain people don't want to only be facing Easterlings. And I certainly want to try, well, now, it's not just going to be Optilung oils, it's also going to be Liquin. I'm looking forward to giving that a try. Well, and there's also some large-scale things, too, that I'm going to be doing in oils. What was the last oils month? Was that October, I think, once we got back from ReaperCon? Or was it the month when we went to... Yeah, that was all about oils. That was so much fun. See what difference that makes right there? And again, that's the clear blue. That's the right here from Reaper, mixing that with our fluorescent blue. And this is the mint green I've been telling you about. Again, also for Reaper. Sorry, the labels kind of... I sort of intentionally wipe out the labels sometimes. Now here we go. Let's compare our two. And there's your lovely couple there. Got that red, got that intense blue. That's really fun. Mix of different brands. So as what I'm going to do is the Dol Amroth is going to be all Optilung, because it's about that control experiment. If you have 3 different paints, that's what I did. What was it? Harad, just in Green Stuff World paints. We didn't mix, like here we have a little bit of Reaper, we have a little Vallejo, touch of the Pro Acryls. I want to just see what the Optilung can do. But then when I do some of the other stuff, say the Ossiarchs, then we'll just go combo. Everything goes. Winsor Newton, Optilungs, oil brushers, the whole shooting match. And that's another way that we can see how do they work together. Because we know already that I like to take the Winsor Newtons and mix those with the oil brushers. Because what that actually does, it sort of acts like liquid in a way. It dries them out a little bit faster. Yeah, this is fun. See, now we're really starting to get some in-depth blue here. Yeah. Well, this is the fun stage where you just refine. Now, I could refine for hours more. Obviously, we are not going to do that because, well, I need to sleep anyways, but people can only necessarily watch this for so long. But we talked all the time in the army painting episodes. How do you get figures to a place where you say, you know what, I'm just going to take that to the game store or whatever, and we'll play with it as is. And then we'll put it back on. All of this is some. Let me get. It's blue tack in a dead Reaper paint container. This is another reason why I tell people don't get your heart set on just one line of paint, because this jar used to have paint in it, and it was Reaper paint. That's how all Reaper paints used to come, is in a jar like that. clearly they don't come like that anymore. That's been years and years since they made those paint jars. So outside of the usual assurances, things that always are going to happen to you in life, you know what those are. The other thing that's going to happen is paint companies will change their formulas, change their paints, discontinue stuff, which is why I try and stay ahead of that curve somehow. It's a little bit like what was the Indiana Jones movie where he's running away from that big old rock or whatever. Just imagine that's you trying to run away from changes in paint lines. And if you stop to rest or look backwards, guess what's going to happen to you? You'll be very flat and probably kind of sad. Another reason why we're putting the dark here is just like this. We're trying to give it that little bit of a attraction, center of attention. See, look at how that works. Yeah, I'm so glad that I just happened to collect some references for, again, Liz Sherman from the Mantic Hellboy board game. Next up for this will be Rasputin, wherever I just put him. Ah, here he is. So what we'll try and do is have a flaming book here. Who knows, maybe it's a green flaming book. Maybe it is a green flaming book, and we try to use some of this here. That's another golden acrylics. See what happens with that. So we're still taking the clear blue along with some of our fluorescent blue, and we're doing some more of these glazes here. Let's see if I can't do on the face here and in the hair. Yeah. It's also more of a reddish blue, whereas the other blue has some green in it. So we're sort of changing our blue colors a bit, getting a little more depth in that. See, now we start to maybe pick out some strands of hair here. Yeah. And for the heck of it, I'm going to just take a little touch of this blue here and use it to make some darks. This needs, yeah, that needs, so we got our blue liner here. Maybe we'll throw in a touch of that too and make it that much darker. On this collar here, couple of darks. Maybe even the hair right here. Few more darks. Oh, down by the boots. We need some darks down there too. We're just gonna start using some of this blue liner here. Maybe even some shadow areas on the legs there. Oh, thanks, Kim. Yeah, this I was hoping that this would translate on screen. Sometimes where I'm seeing it, I'm at a real disadvantage looking at my own window here. I sort of hoping maybe that at some point I can change the setup around here so that the monitor is higher. Because right now I'm looking through a forest of LED lights and cameras and a whole bunch of other stuff that's just in my way. And I was hoping that there was some difference in the blues. That as bright as they are and intense as they are, there's some greens in some parts. Some parts almost a little more red. This is now back more towards that grayish green blue here. Because we have plenty of warm midtones and such in here. Now we're going to go with actually some cool darks. It sort of starts to tie in the bright blue into other areas too. Because especially when you've got what's tantamount to a board gaming figure, sometimes you need to sculpt with paint a little bit, and that's kind of what we're doing here. We're sculpting with paint. You have to sort of bring back what maybe the sculptor originally did, that sometimes can get lost in the casting process, especially when it is a board game figure. Here, let's get a few darker strands. Yeah, that's what it needs. Just needed a few of those. Now I have to avoid the temptation of taking my blue liner and hit that. We don't want that. Don't want that, but you can see just how dark that clear blue is. That is nice and dark. And the other thing I can do is remember the Army Painter Annie Shine, which, here it is. Now, if you ever have, when you're using different types of paint, sometimes different manufacturers, you get some more satin, some more shiny, some more flat. This basically will kind of equal that out for you. So, and I love it because you brush it on. It's all indoors, so you don't have to worry about stuff turning into snow or whatever, or frosting on you. Never have to worry about that. Look at how, see how intense those darks can still be. But when you go back to the beginning, that all of this just looked like an unholy mess. Ironically enough, since it's a Hellboy figure. But you sort of stay the course, and you know what your final result, what you're looking for. And sometimes you just have to stay with it, stick to your guns. And I know just from experience or whatever that I'm setting up that next layer. It's like all of this blue, this intense blue right here, that was set up by those lighter layers that came before it, because this is all very translucent. It's effectively like what I like to call just a dry glaze. It's watery, yeah, but it's not the type of glaze that's just going to run around all over the place. Get me something to drink here real quick, just 1 second. And I apologize if that makes noise into the mic, because I can't really move that and hold on to the figure and do that other stuff all at the same time. Still trying to get me some separation here on these individual teeth of the zipper. Do I need to? Yeah, I'm looking at this, coming over here. I gotta get some of this lighter blue. That's that mint green again. Just a touch of it there. Yeah, that's okay. I think the shoulder might need some light. I might even extend the flame here, so almost wrap it around the shoulder. Now I'm gonna pop a couple of right there. Now that stands out because of all the stuff we did with the blue right there, with the clear blue and the fluorescent blue. I think on the other side of this, we got to get a bit of a linear highlight there, and I think, let's see if this will work here. Trying to get just a touch more blue on the skin right in there. I think that did it. I've got actually a little too much of a... That's kind of darker. I'm going to see if I can't lighten up this. Yeah, let's try and lighten up that portion of the face. We've got our... the sort of semi-rosy red color over here. Let's... Looking to do that on this side of the face. There we go. Now use a little bit of the maiden flesh, potentially lighten that. See if I can get where you can see it too. Trying to get a little highlight on that cheek there, and we'll just we'll stay there, not do too much more. Just sort of an angry look on her face. I mean, I believe that's the whole thing. The flame happens when she's really angry or whatever. At least that's how the superpower or whatever manifested itself. So we'll go with that. We'll run with it. Finding a few regular highlights here now. The patch there. See if I can get just a few hints of, yeah, top of the head there. You don't actually see it when you got it this way, but hey, what the heck. We know it's there. Are there any other spots we want? Yeah, let's... Gonna see if I can add... maybe this even gets a little bit of a texture, a little stippling. I might jump up one more. Few brighter highlights here. Oh, what the heck. Let's got a lot of the Pro Acryl white mixed into things like the Maiden Flesh sepia liner here. I wouldn't mind having some bright colors on the top of the head there. Now that, I'm going to mess around with the edge of that blue a little bit here. Not quite sure I want it to be, almost look like it's casting a shadow here. I want it to be more just straight up light. That's better. It's less of a shadow. I'm going to go a little more with that. Here we got some mint green into that. Yeah, I think that translates a little better now. There we go. Yeah, so I think now we are a little over 2 hours right here. Yeah, I'm gonna grab, where's Hellboy? Here he is. So you can see very much the opposite here of our that reddish flame. Still use the fluorescent paints on each one. So I just want to say thanks to Trevor, Aviad, First, Last, and Kim, engineered to draw. I'm going to scroll through, see who all was in the chat here. So I think we also had Bettany for a little bit, and Jared from out west, and Falcon, Nomad, and Rope, and Mail Gunier, and Yokeo, Alan. Hey, Alan. That was great. And Chopper and James were first in. So if you want to see some more of these, Fruity Toots. Well, I'll be doing this again either on the 30th or 31st. So I will be, this was actually supposed to be last night, believe it or not. But then I realized, no, sometimes Thursday nights our internet kind of goes down for a few minutes at this time. Oh, that's okay. Well, you can watch these from scratch. Besides, I have to start that upload of the Lizard Man video that I just finished for the Patreon page. So this was a blast, and well, you didn't get to see, but we're gonna be doing Rasputin next from the board game here. I think we're gonna put some kind of a flaming book down here and have that casting light from underneath him, because this is light from above. This way will sort of be a little bit like this. All right, that'll be a blast. So thanks again, everybody, and I will catch you soon, just in a couple of days. Thanks again for watching.